to another Hunting with a Passion podcast. Thanks for joining. We are going to be starting our summer scouting series again. And as you can tell, I'm in a different studio. I actually moved about 10 minutes closer to my work, more in the mountains-ish. Really close to a lot of public land. So super excited about that. But enough about that. We are going to talk today about cell cameras. Whether you're for them or against them, that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. We're talking with my friend Aaron. I met a couple months ago. He'd had a story or post or something on Instagram about him being anti-technology, cell camera type stuff. And so he and I were texting a little bit about it, and I'm like, hey, let's get this on the pod because, you know, I kind of want to hear your full reasoning on why you choose not to use cell cameras and stuff like that. So it was a really good conversation. I learned a lot actually from it, try to be more of a woodsman, and try to apply that to my scouting tactics and stuff like that. So title of this podcast is Keeping It Simple, and we're going to talk about keeping hunting simple and more about hunting than technology. So let's dive right in. Well, thanks guys for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the hunting scouting series. There's definitely more to come, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching. Aaron?
How's it going? How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Going well.
Aaron, you want to introduce yourself a little bit? I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name because I will probably butcher it, so tell us a little bit who you are and everything.
Hold on a second, these headphones aren't working. Yeah, hi, my name's, are we live or
Yep,
what are we
we
doing?
are live. Welcome to the Hunting with a Passion podcast.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. My name's Aaron Pasquarette, live in Northwest Pennsylvania, pretty much live and breathe everything outdoors. So
Awesome. Well, I'm Seth.
Awesome.
Me and then that's Jeremiah. We together run Hunting with a Passion. I'm from Central Pennsylvania, Altoona area, State College area. And then Jeremiah, you're from Southeast Missouri. So he's living, breathing Southern country boy. So
yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like you have a channel, right? A YouTube channel. Your audio is not on.
really?
There you go. You're good now.
There we go.
Yeah, started doing YouTube probably, I think this is my 11th year. My channel's called Legendary Pursuits. We just keep it real, not trying to pull anybody's leg. Not sponsored by anybody, not gonna shove products down your throat, just showing what the average everyday hunter can do out there. Probably put out 10 to 15 videos a year. And yeah, it's just real. Show the ups and downs and everything in between.
Awesome. So I had come across you, I don't know, probably a couple of months ago. There was a story that you had shared about Buck Commander with their crossbow. I think that's where it kind of all started. And we were talking a little bit about that. I kind of want to hear your side of, I'll just call it technology and hunting. Like, what's your, opinion on that? And I know Jeremiah has some questions for you too when you're done.
That Buck Commander post came out, and I can't remember exactly what I said, but you guys and another podcast commented and said about talking about it. I just, like, personally for me, I think we crossed the line when it comes to technology and hunting, and I think we crossed it a while ago. I mean, the Buck Commander, it's like an infrared scope is what that was for seeing supposedly in the first few minutes of shooting time and like the last couple, but I mean, it just looks like a poacher's dream, don't have to, I mean, I'm not even gonna go down the crossbow road of things, but you put that on a crossbow, I mean, you could just cruise the back roads at night, and I mean, you don't even have to turn the spotlight on. So
yeah, so is it a thermal, or is it just is there a difference between like a thermal and infrared? Because I'm ignorant to technology myself, but What's
Yeah,
like,
I
what
mean,
is it exactly?
I I don't think it was full thermal. Like I don't
Yeah.
know what they were calling it, but it they had a target set back in like a dark room,
Okay.
and like there was almost no light in the room, and through that scope you could just, I mean, seeing it plain as day, crosshairs and everything. Uh,
I got you.
and I mean
Take
it's
some of the guesswork out of it, if you will.
yeah, I think it just opens the door for bad actors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
got you.
go ahead, Jeremiah.
No, I was just going to ask him, just dive right off into the trail cam thing, if that's what you want to do, Seth.
Yeah.
Um, but um, I last year I've got a cell camera myself. I bought one. I've only got one, and I know that's a big hot topic, and that's kind of what we're talking about it and whatnot. Um, Pros, cons, all that kind of thing. And so, you said I think I've heard Seth say like you don't have a cell camera yourself.
No, I've never owned one, and I never plan on owning one.
Yeah,
Uh, like just personally to me, that's where I drew the line. Like when that came
yeah,
out, because I can go into more detail about it. It's just I think we're tipping the table, like the scale's too far in our direction as far as like keeping it fair chase. I mean it I try to tell everyone like it's all right if the deer wins. And I feel like we're kind of losing that. Like it's almost a bad thing if the deer wins anymore. Like
Yeah.
what can we create? What can we, and there's a lot of things out there that are worse than a cell camera, in my opinion, like drones,
Oh,
the infrared stuff,
hmm,
thermal. It's just, and I'm not gonna like, I'm not rooting for an all-out ban. I just feel like I wish the wildlife agencies would put some sort of limit on when you can transmit those pictures to your phone, like how often.
yeah,
Because like getting that information, like as soon as that buck walks across in front of your trail camera and you getting that in your pocket, that's a big advantage. And
yeah.
I I don't know what it's like where you're from, but like in Pennsylvania, we're not even allowed to use our cell phones or radios to like say me and you and Seth are hunting and I see a buck come by a couple hundred yards away and he's headed over your way. I can't hit you on the cell phone or just text you and be like, "Hey man, big buck coming your way, get ready." Because like,
Really?
I
yeah,
didn't know
like
that actually. You're
yeah,
enlightening me on my own rules. I didn't know that.
yeah,
Huh.
Because me and my pad
See, in
used to.
Missouri, it's always, I grew up always having radios,
Yeah,
radio each other back and forth. That was a big thing. Now we got cell phones, we can just text each other. But
that's
I,
why.
I do that frequently. Hey, deer coming your way, this or that. But there's no law on that for us in Missouri.
Yeah.
So,
Is that considered
but
like
I see that.
is that considered under law in the book that we get that says like something about like electronic use except for these certain things? Is that what you're talking about?
you know, I
Yeah.
use the device to give the location of game animals.
I see.
Hmm.
Uh,
That's crazy
and
because like
not
I never knew that. Like I've read that law in there before, but I didn't know it was like certain things and like even on private, people get away with a lot of stuff, doing stuff like that. Like growing up, I hunted my pap's farm, and like he and I just had walkie talkies, and he would like, hey, there's a deer coming across the corn, that type of thing. So I'll have to look into that because I don't want to, break any rules that I didn't know existed.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know that rule. I mean, I don't think a lot of people read the book even, and that's not your fault. It's just, I mean, it's
Yeah,
like literally a sentence in there. But like, as far as the cell cams go, back to that, it's like I don't know why the game commission didn't put a stop to the cell cameras with that rule because it's the instant transmission of
yeah,
location of game animals,
yeah.
which they already have a rule against. So I don't know how
Hmm.
they.
Now talking about that,
You,
not talking about that rule in the book, I was listening to someone say the other day that they had lost a deer in archery and they had called the game commission and said, "Hey, I can't find my deer. I was using dogs. We still couldn't find it. Would I be allowed to bring in a thermal drone?"
and to locate the deer and like, do everything in your power to locate the deer and not, let it suffer or anything like that. And they said, well, it's up to your local game warden's discretion. But like they said in the book, it says about like it says something about the use of electronics you can't use except for these certain things. I know there's a list in there, and the guy was saying, it doesn't say anything in there about trail cameras on that list. So technically, I mean, depending on, who you are and depending on your warden, like you could technically using cell cameras or even just normal trail cameras could be illegal depending on your game warden and how they feel. And I didn't even think about that. Like I've seen that, that wording in that book a million times, but I've never really like read the list other than like, oh, well, I'm not using I know you can't use like electronic calls or certain things like that. Um, but yeah, I had not realized that until they were talking about that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that right there is a problem in itself. Like how you just said, like it's depends on who the game warden is in your area. Like that should never be. It should be clear cut. Hunters should be able to read the law and
Yeah,
interpret it without like having to hope that your game warden is feeling good that day.
yeah,
Like
Hmm.
I mean, to me, they failed us on that
yeah.
end, if
And
that's the
it's a
case.
shame that a lot of the game wardens have given other game wardens bad rap because I've met some really nice game wardens that they've even given me tips on where to hunt and stuff like that. But I've also met some really, really rough ones that were like, what are you doing? Like, and he might even be hunting that certain spot or stuff like that. So Um, how do you feel about you were saying about drones and stuff like that? Like, what's your take on not like I know there's guys that use them to like once I know it's being talked about. I think in some of the lawmaking discussion. Um, but like I know there's gonna be guys that are gonna abuse it. But like I don't know if you've heard of drone deer recovery and stuff like that. How do you feel about that, like use in hunting and stuff like that?
I, I think it just opens a door to, like I said before, bad actors.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, if there was like a super strict licensing system where these drone operators for recovery had to be licensed and there was some way to track that they were doing everything
right.
legit. I just feel like that we're all on social media. Jeremiah, I don't know if I follow you yet, but I will. Whether we admit it or not, there's pressure to get a buck every year or yeah,
Yeah.
whatever's in season. But I can just see like these social media guys and even guys in general using these thermal drones to go find an animal that they're hunting and to just like
Yeah.
the fair chase scale so far in their direction. Like
Oh
imagine
yeah.
like you're on a mountain and you're hunting and there's like this giant 160. He's been up there for 4 years. He's there, and then all of a sudden these thermal drones pop up, and you just go up there, and you can literally zoom right in on him, see which side of the hillside he's laying on, and if it's rifle season, just pop in there and get him. Like
Yeah.
it's not that easy.
Yeah.
Just I wouldn't be surprised if there's
But
already
it opens the door to that, is what you're getting at.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like
But
if we
like
were
far as
able to,
like the go ahead.
I feel like
No.
if we were able to police ourselves, we would already have done it by now. But we've shown over and over again as humans that we can't. You know what I mean? Like they'll say like, well, only a couple guys will misuse it, but like we basically used to have control over the wildlife laws like back in the early 1900s, and we almost wiped every animal off of the face of the United States. If it wasn't for some like serious conservation efforts, we wouldn't have what we have today because we were just out there to kill, like bison,
Mhm.
everything. Like we were just, I mean, even deer, which is amazing. We had them down to minuscule
Hardly
number.
nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember it's like my great grandparents and stuff like the farm, my family farm and stuff. It goes back not quite 100 years, but close to it. And I remember like I think it was like my great grandfather that purchased it back in the early 1900s, and it was a big deal if somebody saw just a deer track on the farm. They just saw the track, like that hit the front papers newspapers. Like, man, you come, you'd call your neighbors. They'd say, "Come look at this deer track." Now, opening day of bow season back on our farm, I saw 16 deer and 11 of them were bucks. So it's like, which was a pretty big year for us. Like we don't hardly have that necessarily that many, but it's crazy. Like you're saying, we've gone from look at this deer track, wow, to now, oh, there's a deer track, whatever. So because of conservation efforts, which is crazy to think about.
Now, Aaron, do you own any like non-cell cameras? Do you run any of them? Your mic's off again.
On now.
Yep, you're good.
Yep, you're good.
I don't know why it does that. I didn't click anything, but yeah, I have non-cell cameras. Basically the last 4 or 5 years, I put them out in July or August, and I check them after the season. Life's busy, family life.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time to run out there and check anymore. But
Yeah.
mainly, I just use those for historical data. I'll check them after the season's over. Okay, there was some bucks in this area and like the last week of October, and then I'll just try to use that going forward.
Yeah.
But like to me, I mean, if they said ban all cameras, I wouldn't care. But like with the regular cell cameras, you have to at least walk in there to check them. So you're leaving scent, you're bumping deer. It's not like with the cell cameras, you can literally just stay out. You get that notification, hey, that buck's in here. He's been in here for 24 hours or whatever. I'm gonna move in on him. And like that first sit there, I mean, that's as fresh as you can get. There's definitely an advantage to the cell cameras.
Yeah. Me and Jeremiah were talking about this last night, what we were going to discuss about, and we were talking about the whole cell cam thing. And I said, I see the point, like with you saying, you have that advantage point over the deer. Like this year, my wife had a baby this year, and she didn't want to hunt a whole lot. So I told her, I'd pattern, at least get you a doe this year. So I had like this herd of does patterned down all the way to opening day that I knew the exact time that they'd be walking in and what time we had to be set up. And just like my calculations, everything, it worked right into place. Does what came in and she got a doe and stuff like that. And I mean, I like it for that aspect, but like you said, it's it kind of does hinder us. Like, so Jeremiah and I, we went to Indiana this year, and we hunted public land and some land that we never even set foot on in our entire lives. And we both were like, we had to rely on like tracks and sign that we found, and I was like clueless on what I was doing, and like we got on some bucks and stuff, but like I was just used to relying on, okay, here's a good trail that I knew the deer are coming in, but like seeing trail there, like you had no idea what time they were using those trails and stuff, and so like it was very foreign to me. And like you said, I think you and I were talking, you said something about like we need to go back more like our forefathers did and stuff like that, hunting like the old fashioned way. And like just being in Indiana, that kind of reminded me of like, man, like how did they like get around without cameras, or like even how did our grandparents, they actually put boots on the ground and spent a ton of time in the woods studying these deer, like all pretty much in the summer, and like just watching them all the time. Like I think of Fred Bear, like he was always like in there, and I've read a couple of his books and him talking about like just studying the deer, and like he knew the habitat and stuff like that. And that's like one thing that I really focused on last year. Like, yes, I did use some cell cameras, but like I had to do a lot of scouting in the summer to find like the areas where to put them and stuff like that. So that kind of helped me a little bit. But Jeremiah, you want to ask him, like, tell him about that one thing you were talking about, like when you're in the woods with the cell camera, like the timing.
Far as like if you get a picture of a deer in front of another stand or whatnot. Yeah. So like, I figured I know your view on it, but we're going to ask anyway. As far as like if you're sitting in a stand, you got a cell camera in front of another stand, quarter mile, half mile, whatever. There's your target buck. Boom, boom, boom. He's there. You'd be about an idiot not to get out of your stand and move over to that area, different things like that. So your view on that is that, I mean, that's kind of, I would assume it's kind of taken away from the fair chase, if you will. And we have, but as humans, like we have that to us to where, like I said, you'd be about like an idiot not to get out of your stand. So I don't know. I just thought of a question. Should they maybe limit, I don't know how they would regulate it though, limit how many maybe cell cameras you could use on a piece of property versus you had one, like far as if you had a bunch of cameras in front of every stand to where you could crow hop around and do all that. But anyway, that might have been just rambling, but what's your thoughts on that? Hey, your audio's
I
off, I
can't.
think. There it is.
I think it's just switching in between whenever you guys talk and when I talk. But I mean, I can't like blame you for running over there and hopping in because it's like if it's legal and it is what it is right now. But I don't know how they would be able to limit how many cameras are on your property. That's why I said about the limit the like when it could transmit the photos to you.
Transfer. That they could, yeah.
That's
It would have to
that's
be probably
probably
the
their
thing with
best
the
bet.
app too. Like with transmitting the photos and stuff, they'd probably have to talk to like the camera owners and stuff like that.
Yeah, they talked to
Yeah,
the company.
Yeah. One thing you said last night, Jeremiah, about like, yes, we can pattern somewhat these deer to like, there's a time or whatever, but you were saying last night, like, okay, so say when this buck or doe is supposed to come in like a certain time, you can't always go like you can't always base on your surroundings, like the wind can change and all that. Like, you could be like, this happened to me this year multiple times. That I'm like, okay, my cell camera's saying this nice 10 points supposed to be coming in at this time. He's been here for the past 3 days straight. Where is he? And that time comes and goes. So, I mean, that's one thing that you can with that I see with cell cam to me that like, in my opinion, justifies it because deer are like they're not humans. They're not always super consistent. Like, they want to go to the cornfield for like the next 3 days, and this buck's like, oh, well, I'm going to go over to the soybean, 2 miles away. That's one thing that like I see what you're saying with like, it makes it more fair chase and stuff like that. But I also see um, the side of that as well as like, yes, the deer, they're not completely patternable. Um, and like, what do you say to the guys that are like, like from in my instance, my property that I hunt is like 35, 40 minutes away. And I used to have normal cameras on there. I don't have the gas or the money or the time to go over there and check the camera, every couple weeks. Plus, I'm putting my scent in there and stuff like that. But then I also see, like what you were saying, take the time to like track and stuff like that and stuff like that. But what would you say to those people that are like, hey, I'm not putting my scent in the woods. I put my camera out, say like July, and I'm out of there until us in PA till the end of September.
yeah. I mean, you guys. I mean, I appreciate the pushback. I was on a podcast about the same subject last week, and I was surprised they were two younger guys, and they pretty much agreed with me. And I'm only 32,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess I'd ask you then. You don't have the gas or the time to go check the regular trail cameras, then why do you need to shoot a deer? Because you could go to the grocery store and buy a lot more beef for all the money you spend on hunting, tags,
That's true.
rifles, all the gear. Why do you have to shoot that deer then? Like why do
Yeah.
like if it's not for the adventure of it, if it's not for the memory or the like if it's not if you don't struggle a little bit to put the time in or take the time off work, then are we doing it just to post a picture on? And then this isn't like I'm not directly shooting this
No,
shot at
you're good.
you.
I
I'm
like
just
what you're doing.
like it's because I mean we're blessed in this country that we don't have to hunt for food anymore,
Yeah.
and it financially it doesn't make sense. We're conservationists, like that's what we do. And I love venison, like I love how healthy it is, and I will go out of my way to get a deer so that I can eat it. But from a financial standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
If I just
it doesn't make, as far as what we're trying to do and what a lot of people do. I have the opportunity, like I said, I'm on a family farm. The past next year, I think it'll be like our fourth season. We're planting food plots. We got deer towers. Like we're doing all we can to make our our ground better. To have a better opportunity to see more deer, that kind of thing. So in that aspect, I'm spending way too much money on eating the deer. Uh, but I look at the guys. I look at the guys that rifle season around here is huge, and it is most across the United States. Um, and guys will go hunting for the opening day of rifle season. If it's brown, it's down. They're this To me. I feel like if you're going to do that, then it is cheaper, if you will. You bought a tag, you bought a box of shells. You ain't never stood, you go to the same spot every year, public ground, private ground. You don't put any money into it. So that would be, but it's kind of like you had said, conservation. It's like we're trying to make our ground better because I want to see more deer. I want to do, that. Is it cheaper? No, not at all. I don't want to add up how much money I've spent. But I do enjoy that aspect of it, though. I do. But yeah.
it's like personally, like I never want to get to the point where a season is a failure. If I like the ultimate goal is to get a deer, right? It's to get the big buck, to get
Yeah.
whatever. It's just I want to be out there for the hunt. Like if we're not out there for the hunt, then we're out there for the kill. And like I don't know, this probably isn't the best way to justify or not justify the use of certain tools, but it's just I think like the world's getting to this instant gratification stuff where it's just like if it was hard, I got to figure out how to cut corners to make it easy. And if I
Yeah.
failed, then it's like some of my best hunts are ones that I didn't come home with anything.
Yep.
It was like being close or like freezing on top of a mountain and missing. Like one time I missed this one. It was like a 135-inch 8 point, and I was so cold, like I couldn't even barely get the bow back. I yelled at this deer whenever I went to stop him. I mean, it was dead quiet, and I was just frozen. I was just like, I screamed at him, and he turned and he looked at me and he's like, "Yeah, go ahead and send one," and he he ducked my arrow so bad, and but that just made me want it more, I right back up there on that mountain later, and I got it done, but I just feel like we're losing, like you said about going to Indiana and having to go off the woodsmanship part of it. Like I guess that's where I'm at.
100% we had to.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I love that part of it. I love like with the trail cameras, I love not knowing exactly what's coming around the hill at 4:30. I might be a minority of people, but like once you experience hunts like that, not that you haven't, and then you experience one where it like was easier, I just they're a little bit sweeter, it's for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't even
It's
blame. I
I'm
can't. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, what I was going to say, I'm a big turkey hunter. I like turkey hunting more over deer hunting, and I like them both. But so I'm getting excited. Turkey season's coming up. But man, the hunts that you had, that the turkey beat me 10 times out of one, and then I finally get him. Like I've hunted 5 or 6 days after one turkey, and just kept hitting it, kept hitting it, and you finally get him killed. Man, now and then it's nice to have an easy hunt. But yeah, those that you have to work for and you get it done. I've had, like, my older brother. He went on some public ground and he thought it was a gobbler. He chased a jake for like 100. Finally got the turkey killed, and it was a jake, which that's a different debate or whatever. I say turkey plays the game. He makes you shoot it. I mean, if you're at whatever, but it was a jake. And some people might bash him. Well, it ain't a gobbler. Well, he had walked 2 miles on public ground and chased that thing all day to kill it. So he was very happy with it. So yeah, enjoying that. aspect part of the hunt for sure.
Yeah. That that I would definitely agree with. Like I can, just as you talking Jeremiah, like and you Aaron talking about stuff like that. Like I can think of like 3 different hunts this year that like just deer that I've never seen before. I can think of a specific Indiana hunt, Jeremiah, that like we had a 10 and an 8-point sneak on us that we didn't even know existed. At like
Yeah,
what 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning, and I
yeah, I was right at 10 o'clock.
yeah, and I was always under the impression, oh, deer chill out in the midday. Clearly not in Indiana, but yeah, I like the way what you're saying, Aaron. Like just trying to keep it traditional as much as possible. Um, you've given me a lot of things to think about. This year with this was my first year ever with cell cameras, and I'm like, I'm just gonna use cell cameras to kind of get an idea of what's around. Like, um, I know certain areas in Pennsylvania you can't bait or anything, but like where I was at, I could at a certain spot. And I just, I kind of wanted to get an idea of what I was like buck wise I was looking at. And I'm like, oh, I'll just, leave it and like, I'll use it for like just knowing what's in that area. And then, um, next thing I know, I'm like every morning waking up like Christmas, waiting to see if something's there. And, just you don't realize how addictive it comes to it. And like, and who knows, like probably after we get off of this, next year when I put my cell cameras up, I'll probably put it where I'm only getting pictures once a week or, I'm at work, driving a notification. Oh, you're addicted to cell cameras when you're at work and almost, no, not when I'm driving, but like certain times, you get excited and, I admit it, I'm a cell camera junkie and, I'll still probably use them just to, get a idea of what's on the property, there's a couple public spots I'm looking at I just want to see, what's in the area, but you've definitely given me a lot to think about. And I appreciate your stance on everything, like that, trying to keep it original and stuff like that.
I just if I could just say real quick, I can't even blame you guys for using them or anybody that uses them because these wildlife agencies didn't get ahead of the ball here. But like one of the big problems is that these companies, they create these products that 100% go against the law of the state, right? And then they'll sell this product, everyone buys it, then they lobby the wildlife commissions to change the law to include their product. And that is just a super slippery slope. And that's why when guys say, well, it's legal, I just say that doesn't mean that it's ethical.
Yeah.
And if we don't have more hunters, we have to be the voice for wildlife because they don't have a voice.
Yeah.
So like, you can't tell me that down the road, you like say a decade into all this technology where we're going, wildlife won't suffer for it, because like we can just goes back to like it's okay if they win sometimes because that means that they're there for us to chase the next time.
Yep.
So
It's called hunting for a reason. And you going off of that, oh my word, it ticks me off. You walk in Walmart in the middle of deer season, they got deer corn. You can't even bait in Pennsylvania. I'm like, yeah, people from, was it Ohio? Yeah, Ohio, they're totally going to come over to Altoona, Pittsburgh, whatever, to pick up deer corn. I don't think so. They know what they're doing. It ain't for the old people feeding the deer in their backyard either. I've seen guys, and I was in there the other day picking up, I forget what it was, but I was in the outdoor section. I always go in just to look and talk to the old guys working there. And this one like young kid comes in there, probably like 20 years old. Here I am saying young kid, and I'm only 23, but he comes in and he's like, hey, he goes, if you need to know how to bait, he goes, let me know. He goes, I know a good way. He's like, I take a PVC pipe and I bury it in the ground, and then I fill corn up, and then I cut holes in the pipe. So, there's like a tall piece of the pipe like by this tree, and he'll fill it up at the tree, and then it'll go down the PVC pipe and into the openings, and the deer will just come eat off the ground. That way the game warden can't find a pile of deer corn. And I was at the outdoor show, and I was talking to one of the game wardens, and he was like, I was like, so like how like we were talking about the baiting thing, and I was just trying to get why they don't allow baiting in some areas of PA, and especially during deer season. And they, the main thing is the CWD, but that's a whole different conversation for a different day. But mainly that, and I said, now, is it like very like, do you think there's a lot of people in PA that do it? And he goes, oh yeah. He's like, more than you realize. Like, we only catch not even half of them. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, oh yeah. Not so much on public, but a lot of like private people. I'm like, that's insane. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my pap would put it up during the year and then take it out, like you're supposed to the month before the season starts. And I know in some parts of PA where the CWD is the worst, they say you can't even do it on the off season. So I'm like, well, we need to get this thing figured out because and like you said, like the companies that market stuff like the deer corn or the salt licks or the mineral licks or the powder, they know what they're doing. Like, there's a reason why it's on the shelf in deer season.
It's all about the
Yeah,
$90
it's
on
all
that
about the
is
dollar.
driving that.
But
Yeah.
well, Jeremiah, do you have any more questions for him?
Yeah, I got kind of based off what you were saying, Seth, a little bit. As far as the off season, Aaron, on using trail cameras, what's your thoughts on using cell trail cameras in the off season, summertime, just to get an inventory? And then let's say you pull that cell camera out for the hunting season. Well, on a guy that would do that, like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with that. I mean, that's, if that's a compromise that would get it more regulated in the season, then I don't see a problem with that really. It's just, yeah, I'll give that concession for sure.
I got you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, because that's that's a I was told Seth, like, I've never had a cell camera or a camera in general that, because of that not yet, not saying it won't happen, it probably will. I'll continue to use them, but not yet. I've never had a camera yet to where I killed this deer right here because I had this camera. It gave me a what was in the area,
yeah,
but I haven't yet to
I would
where
just,
it totally, for me, it was like, okay, this was kind of unfair because the camera killed the deer. I just, um, that's probably going to happen. I know it happens, and for a lot of people, just me personally, it hasn't happened yet. So maybe when that happens, or if that happens more regular, maybe in my hunting or something, I might be, for myself personally, might be like, you know what, that's kind of a little unfair. But that's I can just
yeah,
talk for myself personally, kind of like you're talking for yourself personally too.
I would, what was I gonna say? It was, I listen to a good amount of podcasts, and I'll just say that there is a lot of them where a guy gets a big buck or whatever, and he literally says like, "Hey, I got the picture on the cell cam, and I just ran in there, and he came by the tree or whatever." Like, I'm not like, it hasn't happened for you, but like, especially if you listen to the guys that are promoting or sponsored by the cell cameras, like
Sure.
I mean, they kind of tell on themselves. But I don't think I have the magazine handy, but I was reading this article. I don't know if it was Bow Hunting Magazine or whatever, but this guy was saying about, it was like the pros of cell cameras, and he went through it all, and it was just like pretty much what I've been saying, but he was like bragging about it, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say that guys don't do it whenever there's a national hunting magazine putting it out there. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we're going to have to face and talk about and figure out down the road here, because the guys that were supposed to do it didn't. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's time to go back to the old days where they had the I don't know if you remember I didn't have one, my pap was showing me one that you set the string on this deer trail, and it had a little timer on it. When the deer broke the string or whatever broke the string, the timer would stop, so you knew what time you didn't know what stopped it. You assumed it was a deer, not a squirrel or a raccoon. That's what it needs to go
That's
back to that.
innovative.
What's
That's
that?
cool. I said that's innovative. That's cool. I
Yeah.
never heard of that.
Yeah, my pal was like, "Oh yeah, all deer camp up in Potter County. That's what we all ran was those string things." In which probably like if you think about it, like that could have been their pushback too. Like, we're talking right now about cell cams and stuff like that. Whereas like them, they could have been like, "Oh, that's cheating. Like you don't, you know the time and everything." So I mean, it's kind of wild. This debate's probably technology on hunting has probably been going on for I would say 100, not even
Longer we think.
probably 50 years, maybe.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
guys always say like, "Well, who are you to draw the line?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, with if this is the argument, then I'm like I say let's legalize hunting 24/7, 365 at night with bait and thermals.
Yep.
Because like if it's who's going to draw the line,
Yeah.
well, why do we have seasons? Why do we have
Yep.
methods? Why do we have anything?
Yeah.
Because like
And
that's like it comes like that. I call that like my right as an American conservation model. Like,
yeah.
well, it's my right. Somebody has to draw the line, and that's why we have these wildlife agencies because they're supposed to be the ones that do it.
And if nobody draws the line, what are our kids going to be, debating about, shooting deer out of helicopters or trapping them with, nets and then, who knows? So someone, like you said, someone's got to draw a line where it needs, technology needs to stay out of the woods. That's what, basically. So.
I'm not saying we need to go back to the Stone Age. That's not
Right.
what I'm saying. I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
saying we got to address this sooner than later
yeah.
because it's getting out of hand. Like if you walk around the ATA show or the Great American Outdoor Show and you look at those products,
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't tell me that they're archery and you can't tell me that it's fair chase.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah. Yeah. I'll say if we had more time, we would talk about the crossbow thing because I like my grandpa shot a crossbow, and so that's what I started on. And then till about last year, I talking to a lot of guys and stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm done with the crossbow. I need to be a man and use a stick and string. And like you said, not really like we were talking earlier about, killing like your target buck or whatever like that. I shot my first doe on with my compound on public land, and that was like my goal this year was to shoot a deer on public land with my compound, and I accomplished it. And I was like, after that, I didn't go hunting as much. Like once that was done, like I didn't care about shooting a buck or anything. I was like super happy to be
You're
killing
back
my
over
first
there
deer.
just kind of,
Yeah,
got that done.
like
Yeah.
like when I at the beginning of the season, like I'm going out every weekend. Once I killed that doe, it's just like a load was off, and I'm like, it's a nice day. I may go for a walk. I may not. I stay home, spend time with the kids, whatever. But I mean, so I'm trying to like not. I remember as a teenager, I was like, I'm gonna get this big buck. And I just learned to be happy with what you get. Like, I'm sick and tired of these Facebook group chats or whatever, these social media things. You post a deer, like some kid posts a spike or a forkhorn or whatever, and they're like, that ain't a deer, whatever. Like, man, I see the milk on his lips still and oh, nice spots. I'm like, it's a deer. Like, be happy for the kid. You're teaching this kid that the success in a deer hunt is how big the animal is and not the success of the animal that you've taken.
Yeah, for sure. Shoot what you're. I like it's Roger Ragland is his name. He's the older guy, got Outdoor Channel, and I like him because he has a saying: "Shoot what makes you happy,"
Yep.
and I like that. And if you watch his show, he shoots big deer, but if you watch it long enough, he's going to shoot a cow horn spike possibly too and be just as happy with it and roll on. And so I keep that in the back of my mind. We all want to shoot big deer or whatever, but my standard for myself might not be what it is for you, but shoot what you're happy. I'm in my garage and I've got 6 or 7, 4 or 5, 6 pointers that I shot as a kid. And I can remember every one of them, and I was just flabbergasted. And I'm glad I shot them. I look back and I got memories of going hunting and wouldn't trade it for nothing. So I mean, now I look at more the memory than I do the horns on the wall. or looking back. I'm not looking back now thinking, man, why did I shoot that? I'm glad I shot it.
You
Yeah,
hold yourself to somebody else's standards, you're gonna disappoint yourself. So you might as
you
well
are.
figure out what makes you happy, drive for that, and then, you know, success or failure, it was on your terms, not somebody else's.
Yeah,
I
for sure.
started hunting with a recurve this year a little bit, and
Cool.
it the one day I was sitting there and I heard something behind me, and there was like a 4-pointer, and he was coming up right up the trail that I imagined he'd be on. And it's got to be 3 points on a side here, so I'm like trying like heck to put that third point on it, and I'm just shaking
Been
like a
there,
leaf.
done that.
Like this is like one of the smallest bucks that I would have ever shot, and he wasn't legal, so I couldn't do anything about it. But like, had I shot that buck, had he been legal, I guarantee you he probably would have been the best memory I've ever had in the woods,
Yep.
just because of what I was trying to do. And
Absolutely.
that's all that I was worried about.
Yeah. I've been exactly where you're at, trying to dream up a point that's not there. So many times, like, come on, I think I see a little point coming up. Nope. But yep. Well, Aaron, thanks so much for coming on. You have anything you want to plug in, like any socials or YouTube or anything like that?
Appreciate you guys having me on again. People can follow me on Instagram at AP_Woodsman or Legendary Pursuits. That's on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate you if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and
Absolutely.
let me know what you think.
Yeah,
Thanks again
100%.
for having me on, guys.